Hi Year 12 and welcome to your feedback for your business studies task 2. We're going to start with the multiple choice section, and what we're going to ask that you do is that you cross-check that your answer sheet has been marked correct for each of these questions. So just pause the video now, make sure obviously one was B, so on and so forth. Double check. We may have made a mistake. We are human, and if we have, you can let either Miss K or I know, and we will fix up that recorded mark in our spreadsheet for you. Guys, in terms of the multiple choice, we noticed a little bit of a difference when tracking the data between the two classes. Why? I think that those students that came to that afternoon session and really focused on how to answer multiple choice questions did better in this. So if you were not at that session, make sure you go over those resources that were given to you. I know Miss and I spoke to you at recess, but make sure that you go over that. Pretty much the data for this multiple choice section tells us a few key ideas. The first one is that marketing is stronger than finance. Across the 20 questions, the marketing questions were achieved better across the cohort than those that are from the finance unit. The financial strategies is a notable area of weakness. This really shone through that people just did not know their content that well, but there were a few questions that were not just about recall but about application. So have a look through the questions that you've got wrong. You may want to color code them, okay, marketing and finance, and you might see that you fit into this overall trend, okay, that financial strategies was a weakness and that marketing was stronger. The other thing that we saw was the ability to apply. So those higher order or more application-based questions were weaker. Those that were asking for simple content recall were done fairly well across the group. Now that's a good thing in the fact that we're remembering and being able to answer those content recall questions, but we've got to remember that the HSC is going to ask us to do far more than that. So what we want to have a look at is a few questions that were weak across the cohort. Question 8 was weak, and this was a financial strategy question, global financial strategies. And the answer, if you just look by having this diagram that is in your textbook, by having that in your notes, level of risk for the exporter, the most risky is a clean payment. Just by having this diagram from the textbooks in your note, if you had have known that and studied that, you would have known the answer. A few people need to revise this area of content. Question 12 was another question of weakness, and this was, which of the following is a strategy that a business can use to improve its working capital? This is, again, financial strategies, but it's about applying your knowledge of working capital strategies to the options below. Now you can see the working out that we have given you there, okay? And you need to compare this to what you actually wrote on your paper. So don't just look at the option that you picked. Go to your question booklet now and have a look at what option did you pick and what did you assume that was maybe correct that is actually not correct. So what kind of gap in your knowledge was there that led you to pick the wrong option there? Question 15 was a tough one, guys. It was a calculation. The actual calculation was not the hard bit. The annotating and adding the correct amounts in terms of what were current assets, current liabilities, what are non-current liabilities or non-current assets, and also what is simply not to be included. So if you have a look there, we have annotated those for you. Have a look at which one you got wrong. Maybe you got 1 or 2 wrong. And once you do that, okay, you'll be able to figure out, again, what gap was there in your knowledge that led you to not getting that answer correct. Was it the maths or was it this process of annotation? And we would have hoped that everybody's paper would have had this on it. All right. The last multiple choice that we're going to look at is question 20. Question 19 and 20 drew from the same financial information. Question 19 asked you to calculate the opening cash balance. You can see here that the maths has been done, okay? Cross-check yours and see maybe where your mistake was for 19. But for question 20, again, it said, which of the following would be an appropriate management strategy? Now, we needed to be thinking that the information given to us is about cash flows. Cash in, cash out is cash flow. So obviously, April had a negative cash opening balance, and that needed to be improved. Again, you needed to know that sale and leaseback was working capital, cost controls was profitability, gearing was actually about, those financial ratios and processes. Offering discounts for early payments is a cash flow management strategy. So it's not just about knowing your syllabus, but also being able to apply it and eliminate options. All right, have a look through your multiple choice. Okay, have a look through those worked examples again if you need to. And you then need to rate yourself in the following categories. How happy were you with your content memory? Okay, were you happy with how much you were remembering? Have a look at your question booklet. Where were your annotations at? Use these as a sample. Okay, think about this one in particular. Did you do this annotation? Did you do the maths really clearly? Rate yourself there. How often did you eliminate distractors? Were you eliminating them in every question, or did you barely eliminate? Okay. The last one is really thinking about how confident were you in your own proof? Could you essentially write a statement to prove your selection correct, or were you kind of guessing? All right. What I then want you to think about once you've finished all 4 of those is, what do you need to work on for the trial? The trial is going to have 20 multiple choice across a broader range of content areas. Of those areas that we've given here, content, annotation, distractors, proof, this idea about application, write yourself a few, I suppose, maybe goals or strategies that you want to implement to help you improve your multiple choice before the trial. Okay, part A was the hand-in extended response, and I marked all of these. We gave you this task to essentially imitate that section 4 of the HSC. I'm not going to read through these for you now, but these are the last couple of years, the questions that have been for section 4. Just have a look and think about whether or not you would be able to use this assignment to help you answer a question in a HSC or a trial exam. So you can see here a range of directive terms: explain, analyze, and evaluate. So there's no real common trend there. We often see influence and strategy together, but have a look through those. Your question was to evaluate the effectiveness of marketing strategies for overall business performance. Like the HSC, the rubric and therefore the marking criteria reflected these main areas: content, case study, communication, and structure. Now, the first thing that we would have hoped that you would have done is to break down the question. Evaluate the effectiveness. You needed to measure the extent. So you needed to think about whether marketing hindered or facilitated the realization of the objective. And that was one thing that better responses did, and you might want to annotate this on your paper now, was that they linked in or used that idea of marketing objectives as well as those big ideas linking to overall business performance. You also needed to show this idea of cause and effect. What is the strategy and what is the effect of using that strategy? How effective has that strategy been? What have been the outcomes or the results of using that strategy? And obviously, again, it talks about this idea of the desired outcome. What was the aim? Okay. Obviously, profit is the big one in terms of business performance, but that is not the only measure that you could have used. In terms of marketing strategies, the content part of the question, you could have chosen to write about any of these. Better responses spoke about 3 to 4. And those top end responses really showed how the strategies needed to complement each other. That, your use of e-marketing will go along with your branding under products and things like that. And we'll have a look at some samples. The last bit, or the limitation of the question, was this idea about overall business performance. And a number of different indicators could have been used. Okay, sales, revenue, profit, market share, even something like brand awareness. They're not the only measures, but they are those kind of big picture overall business performance measures. This is where we really wanted to see you using some type of data. This strategy was implemented, these were the effects, and we can measure it through revenue, or we can measure it through the profit, okay, before and after. Comparative data here would have been the most effective to show what was it before that marketing strategy was implemented and what was it after, okay. The other thing you need to annotate here, please, guys, is that your data should always have context, okay. You should always give a date, and even in some cases, you needed to provide the context. Was it within Australia? Was it global? Okay, some people were talking about, new stores opening. Well, was that within the Australian market or global? You always need to give that context with your data as well. Okay, we're going to focus on our feedback through work samples. And we're going to do it within the framework of a bit of a literacy focus. Starting off at a whole text level, it's an extended response, a body, okay, with an introduction and a conclusion. Overall, guys, pretty much everybody had this. What you need to annotate here is we need to see this in an exam. We cannot have great whole text structure on a hand-in response, and then when it comes time for the trial, we forget that and we just write pages and pages without any whole text structure. At a paragraph level, okay, we do need to continue to work on our use of peel or teal. Most students use the syllabus to drive their paragraphs, so 3 paragraphs on 3 different strategies, or 4 body paragraphs on 4 different strategies, which was great. But we really needed to see further development of our content, showing that marker that we understand what the strategy is, but that we can provide some depth with that as well. Okay, and obviously the integration of case study is really important. At a sentence level, guys, and a word level, we've got a bit more work to do. At the sentence level, we want to see this integrating of case study done at a sentence level. So within one sentence, we have case study and content. At a sentence level, we needed to be using data with evaluative language. So not just using data as a bit of a, oh, yep, here you go, I've given you a stat, you should be happy. It's, oh, here's the data and this is what it proves. So we needed to take it one step further and say, well, this data clearly shows, okay? I would also suggest that in the majority of responses that you use the syllabus in your topic sentence or your point. I would also suggest that you not be afraid to introduce your case study at times earlier in your paragraph as well. 2 things at a word level. One is using the correct tense. Some of us were swapping tense within a sentence. So within a sentence, we were going from past tense to present tense. It's really important that we work on basic little things like that that affect the sophistication. And arguably the more important one is avoiding this informal and spoken language. It is really important that we use academic language, SST, but that we are showing the best version of our knowledge, okay? Not the everyday spoken version. So we're going to start at a word level, okay? And it's really important to use the correct tense and obviously avoid spoken and informal language. I'm not going to go through all of these with you, but what I want you to do is to make sure that you read and highlight this section here. In this first box, there's a sentence, and then often there will be a question or a statement that you then need to respond to. So with this first one, with strong brand awareness, Woolworths and Apple can effectively influence customers' purchasing decisions. Can you think of which term there could be changed to help respond to that evaluative directive? With these next two samples, okay, you've got a sentence here and a sentence here. You need to identify the informal or spoken language and then rewrite it, replacing those terms. Now, guys, you need to be a bit reflective here too. So pause now and complete the activity. But what you need to think about is, what is your focus, okay, at a word level moving forward? Did you have any problems that maybe I identified on your individual feedback that was different? Okay. Looking at these samples, can you think, oh yeah, there was a little bit of that in my work, and I need to work on my use of more formal language? All right, have a go at your word level stuff now. Okay, guys, at a sentence level, we needed to focus on using data. Okay, specific numerical data should have been integrated. Okay, but this data should have proved the effectiveness or ineffectiveness. Now, this might be something that you want to annotate. Very few students address the idea of ineffectiveness of a strategy that hasn't worked. And there are many examples that you could give with that. Okay, I always think of public relations or PR. Often we get or we see that businesses are negatively affected from that. The numerical data needed to link with overall business performance, and many of you were giving data but not drawing, okay, back to that main idea of business performance. Okay, I know it's 2 sentences or 3, so don't stress, but just have a think about, what do you think are the strengths of the above sentences? And what would you do differently? How would you write that? What are the issues? What do you think the areas are to improve? Once you've done that, have a think, have a reread of your response and think, what was similar, what was different? The other thing that we needed to look at, guys, was our use of topic sentences. Many responses did not have clear topic sentences, and people were often trying to write too many ideas, and it became overly complicated. And as a marker, I'm going, what is this paragraph about? Read this sample. It is very clear what this paragraph is going to focus on in terms of the syllabus. Think about the purpose, though, of the second sentence. So it's got a clear topic sentence. You're going to know exactly what syllabus strategy it's going to talk about. It also talks about something to do with business performance. But look at the second sentence. Think about the purpose of that second sentence and how you could use a sentence like that in your response. All right, the next two samples, guys, are to get you thinking about integrating your case study at a sentence level. Better responses were able to integrate their case study and content at a sentence level, and other responses tacked that case study at the end of the paragraph, and that's kind of, a little bit more of a simplistic way of approaching it. So have a read of both of these samples and then have a go at answering the questions. What was the syllabus strategy? How did you know this? And what is the case study going to be? With this sentence level activity, read the sentence, rewrite this sentence because this sentence did not integrate the case study at a sentence level. And then think about this idea of critical judgment. Have a look. Did you use any links to ineffective strategies? Did you use any judgment that said, well, actually it had a negative impact? All right, because that may have been one of those ways to help you bump up your mark. All right, the last bit on sentence is this idea of evaluative language. Most of us did some of this. Yeah, so we might want to annotate here. There was some use of this. Most responses had some. Was it the whole way through? Was it sustained? No. Okay. So have a read of this sentence. Think about what judgment terms are used. Now, this was the last sentence of this paragraph. Okay, the last 2 sentences. But think about what numerical data could have or would have been provided earlier. So think about, if you're going to make this judgment, what data should you have given to be able to prove it? Okay. Have a look in your own response. Can you locate 3 statements that have clear and supported judgment. All right, have a go at that now. You might want to write one or two of those out. Again, be a bit reflective now, guys. What is your sentence level focus moving forward? Okay, and how do you plan on improving this? This is something you are going to do. Okay, it might be that I'm going to rewrite a paragraph and focus on my topic and my link sentence, and I'm going to hand that to Miss, first day back next term. It might be that you are going to try and use a color coding system when you do your practice responses, etc. Make sure that you are really clear on what you are going to do. How do you plan on improving it? Because otherwise, if we're not putting in active measures, we're really wasting our time. Okay, at a paragraph level, a few things that we could work on. Introductions, guys, we need to make sure they are logical. Okay, sometimes students were trying to write too much. Sometimes students were trying to, and if I wrote this on your work, overwrite. They were overwriting. They were trying to use all these fancy, big words, when in essence, they just needed to state what the response was going to deal with. Okay. It is important to show complexity, undoubtedly, but clearly stating your syllabus, clearly introducing your case studies is what is important in an introduction for this response. Have a read of this introduction. Think about its strengths. Think about, do you know as the reader what strategies are going to be explored? Do you know the case studies? Are you aware of how business performance will be measured? And can you find any judgment language? Okay. Once you've done that for this sample, have a reread of your own and think about what can you learn? What could you possibly do differently with the next introduction that you write? All right, guys, pause and have a go at that one now. Okay, hopefully you've got this bit filled in. You've really kind of looked at this sample. It's very clear. Very concise, and you've maybe picked up a few tips or hints on what you're going to do differently next time. The next sample really focuses on the clarity, but also the comprehensiveness of content. Many of you are sitting there with, 13s, 14s, maybe 15s as well, and you're thinking, I was on the right track, but often it was the comprehensiveness of the content. Okay, so detailed marketing strategy content with the case study integrated. So have a look at this paragraph. Okay, you can see it's not perfect because I've made a couple of annotations there, but have a look at what the topic sentence accomplished. Okay, so have a really clear read of that. Think about the case study that has been integrated. Okay, can you find it at a sentence level? Is there in any specific numerical data that links? All right, you might want to highlight that in here where the data is being used to link to, okay, that judgment. Can you think of an area that this paragraph might want to improve on? You might want to look at my red annotations. But lastly, go now to one of your own body paragraphs and really think about, did I provide that same clarity yet comprehensiveness of my content? Okay. And obviously this response, okay, that kind of tracked the whole way through their response. The content was very clear, but also very detailed. Okay, have a look at yours. Did you have a really strong paragraph, but then one that maybe wasn't as comprehensive? All right, you should have this bit done now. If not, pause and complete that. Okay, this next sample is really trying to stretch some of you because many of you did not give any idea of critical or ineffective judgment. All right, it does show a level of sophistication to say, well, you know what, in the real world, not all marketing strategies are successful. Okay, in the real business world, sometimes marketing strategies are implemented and consumers do not respond well to them. Okay, and we looked at a bit of that as well with that ethical section of the syllabus that you could have used there too. Have a read of this paragraph because it does it well. It has both the idea of effective and ineffective within the one paragraph, and it really, okay, shows a good use of data and integrating case study at a sentence level. Highlight the strategies and evidence that are given in terms of effective, and in a different colour, highlight those that are linking with ineffective. Have a look at the use of data and SST throughout this, and then have a look at yours. Can you notice a difference, okay, in what this paragraph is doing and what your paragraph's focused on? Okay, guys, that is pretty much the majority of the feedback. We've done a good job, okay? If I think back to the work that I marked in year 11 for you guys, we've definitely made an improvement, which is our aim. We've still got a fair bit of work to go, in particular at this sentence and word level. So please make sure that you've completed all of those activities, that you've filled it all in, you've really reflected on your own work, and you've thought, what am I going to do differently? How am I going to use this as a building block or a stepping stone? All right, there's a little bit of a bonus round. I know it's very exciting. Some of you are sitting there with kind of a 15, 16, 17, and you're thinking, how do I turn this into an 18, a 19, a 20? Well, you can have a read of this, okay? If you got a kind of 10, 12, yeah, somewhere around there, a 13, how are you going to turn that into a 15, a 16? Have a read here. What I've done is I've included two samples, okay? If you were sitting in that kind of 15, 16, 17 range, read this and read this sample, okay? It's annotated. Have a look at what your response didn't maybe do that this response did, but also think that there's never just one way to answer a response, okay? That is not the only way to, break into that top A section, but it is one example that we have for you. If you're sitting there thinking, I'm not totally happy, I really wanted to break into that higher B range or into that B range, yeah, you're kind of sitting in that C range, what do you need to focus on? Have a read of these, okay? Take down some notes, annotate there, and then read, highlight, annotate the sample, okay? And hopefully that will give you a few ideas on maybe what wasn't in your response that could have been, or maybe some areas that were in your response that needed some further focus. Okay, the last thing is kind of thinking forward. How to use this task as prep. You really need to make sure that you go over this in the holidays. In class next term, we are going to be completing an informal section 4. We are going to do it in a HSC style. So you're going to come in, you're going to have 50 minutes, okay, it's going to be exam conditions, but we are going to essentially ask you a very similar question to this response. Because if you can't transfer this assessment into something that will help you for the trial or the HSC, we've really wasted our time. Okay, so think about that. Think about, do I need to go over it? Do I want to do some work on it over the holidays so I'm prepared for that? Okay, and Miss and I will let our respective classes know when that's going to take place. The last thing is thinking about takeaways. Now, yes, I'm being a bit lame there, but I really want you to think about, what are you going to take from this video? What are you going to take from your individual feedback, your cohort feedback to help you? Think about the big ideas, okay? What are the 3 big ideas or the 3, areas that you want to change or improve before the trial? Now, these might, be worthy of a conversation with your teacher. Miss, I really want to focus on this. How do you think I should do that? It's up to you guys though, okay? How much you work with this feedback, how much you look at it over the holidays, whether or not, you have that growth mindset, that idea of, I'm going to use this and improve on it, it will make a big difference, okay? I can't recommend this idea of thinking forward or thinking about the takeaways enough. All right, guys. As always, if you have any questions or issues, please speak to Miss or I, but I hope that this feedback has really helped you go through your response. And I will see you guys in class. Thanks.